This is Ramblin' Rusty. On Friday, November 24, I took a trip down to one of the, I call it, natural wonders of North America, Natural Bridge. Natural Bridge is a very unique thing. You walk down some stairs. Now, I did not try to take pictures while I was walking down the stairs. There was over 100 stairs to get down to the valley floor from the visitor center. So I don't have any video of that. But when you get down to the bottom, here you find a very beautiful little creek. It's called Cedar Creek. They have some very good trails going along beside the creek. And when you come into view of the Natural Bridge, it's amazing. Here it is opening 215 feet tall is the opening in Natural Bridge. The Statue of Liberty could fit in there and still have space above it. But a lot of question is, how in the world did Natural Bridge form? I am so glad that they are not saying that it was formed by Cedar Creek over millions of years of erosion. Instead, the geologists have come up with the idea that the Natural Bridge was formed by the roof of a cave collapsing and leaving that opening. Now, there's a possibility that an earthquake may have cracked portions of the cave roof and triggered rock falls, but that's the way it is right now. The Monacan natives who in that area have their own story of how it was formed. One of the stories is that a group was being pursued by some enemies. They were down in this deep valley, and there is no way out. There's just a solid rock wall in front of them. Well, they prayed to their almighty spirit, and boom, an opening appeared. And of course, that was enough to scare away those that were chasing them. Well, Thomas Jefferson visited that area, and one of his comments was that this was something that needed to be preserved for future people to come and visit. And in fact, that was his plan in the beginning, to do that. And so he purchased Natural Bridge and 157 acres surrounding. From King George III of England, he bought it for 20 shillings. Now, this was something really unique that I found out, that Thomas Jefferson hired a freed African American by the name of Patrick Henry to be the caretaker. And so Patrick Henry had obtained his freedom, and then later on he bought the freedom of his wife. But he was a caretaker there. In a way, you could say that he was the very first park ranger, because he had built a small 2-room log cabin there. And when Thomas Jefferson or other important people would come, he would show them around. And right at the end of Thomas Jefferson's land was what they call Lace Falls. It's about a 30-foot waterfalls cascading down the rock face. Very beautiful thing. This area was also surveyed by George Washington. And in fact, somewhere about 50, 60 feet up on the wall are initials GW. But people really believe they were put on much later than when George Washington was around in that area. The first time that I visited Natural Bridge was on my way to Alumni Weekend from Florida. I saw the sign, Natural Bridge, and I don't remember visiting it before. So I went there, and it was the spring of the year. What a beautiful time to visit the bridge, because the flowers were blooming, the trilliums and the violets, flowers were blooming. But on down there was a group that the Monica natives had set up, showing the way that the natives would have lived when the Europeans first came there. I really spent a lot of time there, and I did not go all the way to the end to see the Lace Falls. Natural Bridge is a beautiful place to visit. It is run by the Park Service. It's a very reasonable price to get in. It's $9. And I told them I was a senior citizen, but guess how much they charged me? $9. It was well worth it. Now, I did not show any videos of going down the steps. It's over 150 steps going down. They're not all even steps. And, well, I'm 80 years old, and I wanted to hang on the handrail and not take pictures at that time. One of the unique characteristics there in the sort of, I call it a gorge, the valley where Cedar Creek goes through, is that they find white cedars, northern white cedars. And this is the farthest south that these cedars are located. And they think that during the glacier period up north, that the cedars were growing down there, and then as the glaciers receded, they stayed on. There's some real gnarly old cedars there now. There are two real interesting sections there in Natural Bridge. One of them is a saltpeter cave. Well, Thomas Jefferson knew about this saltpeter cave, and in fact, he even set up that they would make saltpeter there. And in order to do that, they would dig up the dirt, put it in hoppers, put it in water, and then boil off the excess and make saltpeter. All right, right now I'd like to read to you a little plaque that they had near that cave.
Muskets cannot fire without gunpowder. This cave supplied ingredients used by American soldiers for decades. Saltpeter Cave was carved out from nearby limestone by years of stream erosion. After discovering nitrates in the cave, Thomas Jefferson decided to lease it for production of saltpeter as a major ingredient in early gunpowder. Saltpeter was made at this site, used in the War of 1812 and the Civil War. In many caves, nitrate-rich compounds came from droppings of bats and birds. It has shown that the nitrate compounds in the southeastern United States are a complex form of nitrogen-fixing bacteria, oxidation, and evaporation. These compounds were collected from caves and boiled to concentrate, crystallize the potassium nitrate into saltpeter.
When you came out of the saltpeter cave, you saw some signs there giving the different distances to certain places. You can see that the whole walk down and back is basically one mile one way and a mile back. But don't forget the stairs that you have to come back up. But anyway, the next interesting feature that you come is a little sign talking about Lost River. What is Lost River? Lost River is a river that sort of disappears into the ground and not sure where it goes or where it comes out. Anyway, they were found out at the Saltpeter Cave that there was a sound of water somewhere else. So they used some of the saltpeter and made gunpowder and blasted a hole. And sure enough, there was a river running back there. So what they did, they got some pipes and piped water to where they were making saltpeter. As you remember, they had to take the dirt, get the dirt out, mix it in with water, and then they boil off the water, and the residue would equal saltpeter. So you able to see that sign, and you keep going along the Cedar Creek. It's a beautiful little creek, and I read something there, it's sort of neat, that those under 16 years of age, 16 years and under, that they can fish there without a fishing license. It looked like some beautiful places to get trout, some nice little holes along that line and in the creek as it was going down. Well, the trail ends at a nice little waterfall about 30 feet tall. It's not a free fall waterfall. It's tumbling down some rock faces, and it's called Lay Springs. And that is the end of what Thomas Jefferson's property was. Like I said earlier, that Thomas Jefferson wanted to preserve this land for people later on to view this wonderful thing called Natural Bridge. Well, when he died, there were some debts owed, and so they finally sold the land. Eventually, the land was acquired by the Park Service, and now it is part of the Park Service. Now, another interesting thing, Route 11 goes right over top of Natural Bridge. There have been a lot of studies right now whether they should move the road, Route 11, or not. I don't know if it's been done. I've been looking it up, and I see different things say, yes, it's going to be moved, or no, it isn't. And the problem was that when you go down the trail, you say, watch for falling rocks. And that is a special thing, that if a rock does get knocked down from above, that they are not responsible because you didn't watch for it to come down. Anyway, it's a wonderful time. If you get a chance to visit Natural Bridge, please do so. It's one of nature's wonderful wonders. This is Ramblin' Rusty, signing off for now.